Hi and welcome to this video. LingQ 5.0 just launched a while ago, and now that most of the bugs are fixed, me and my boyfriend sat down to create this link guide for you. With this video, we want to give you an introduction to LingQ, the website, how to sign up, how to navigate the website, and some tips on how to effectively use LingQ. Before we dive into that though, let's take a moment to talk about what LingQ is, what LingQ should be used for, and check in with your expectations about what LingQ is going to help you with, because there are a lot of people that seem to be a little confused about what LingQ actually does. There will be timestamps down in the description, so feel free to check those out and skip ahead to whatever part you want to watch. Okay, let's get started then. What is LingQ? At its core, LingQ is an e-reader for language learners. They currently have full support for 18 languages, some of which are Spanish, French, German, Japanese, Korean, Italian, Mandarin, and many more. They also have partial support for 19 additional languages, and they are continuing to add languages. LingQ has a built-in dictionary with translations generated from official dictionaries and other users, allowing you to instantly look up words and phrases that you don't know. LingQ will save those words and phrases for future reference, which are called links, which makes it really easy to see which words you already know and which ones you are struggling with, and they transfer from one text to another, so you don't have to repeatedly look up the same words. LingQ also offers a wide range of content in their content library, anything from news to novels to podcasts and much more. They also offer a few beginner courses that make it really easy to get started reading in your target language. The real fun part though is that you can import any type of text that you have in digital form. This means you can import your favorite novels, newspapers, and websites into LingQ and read them with the help of a pop-up dictionary. LingQ also keeps track of the words you know and many other useful stats, such as how many words you learned, how many words you read, and so on. Based on those stats, it will then show you how many words in a text you don't know. This makes it very easy to find texts that are just right for your level. LingQ has a free version, but it is limited to 20 links and 5 imported lessons, which essentially means you can only save 20 words and you can only import 5 lessons. The premium version will unlock an infinite amount of links and lessons you can import. If you're not sure whether you want to use LingQ or not, you can sign up with my referral code down in the description and get 100 links for free. Okay, now that we know what LingQ is, let's move on and talk a little bit about the benefits of using LingQ, which my boyfriend will kindly present to you.
Hi, so why use LingQ? I have a syllogism that I like to run through that explains why I think LingQ is one of the best tools for learning a language. The first premise is that language learning is fundamentally a game of vocab acquisition. How many words and phrases can you learn? The second premise is that reading is the best way to learn and acquire vocabulary. And the third premise is that LingQ is the best way, or one of the best ways, to read in your target language. I'm not going to debate the first 2 points, but assuming that they are true, let's look at why LingQ is such a good way to read in your target language. There's a few reasons. One, it lets you click on a word and instantly look it up, and then it's just saved forever for a quick reference when you're reading. So it just basically makes looking up words faster and easier. Secondly, it helps you notice what you don't know and what you're learning more when you read, because every word that is new that you haven't come across yet, it will be highlighted in blue, and every word that you're learning that is linked will be yellow or orange, depending on whether it's a phrase or a word that is unknown. And if you subscribe to what Steve Kaufman promotes, which I do, noticing is one of the key factors in whether you're learning the material. You do learn stuff subconsciously, but you learn more consciously if putting in effort and making actually connections between what you know. At the very least, that's going to speed things up. And third reason to read in LingQ is motivation. So there's a few things that help with motivation, but I think the most powerful thing is their core metric at LingQ, which is known words. Essentially, this is gamification of vocabulary in an actually meaningful way, the most meaningful out of any other system or app that I've ever seen. Because the so-called intermediate plateau, I don't know if I subscribe to that idea, but once you hit this intermediate stage, it becomes quite apparent that language learning is a game of vocabulary acquisition, because you will just grind more and more and more words, and it will seem like there is an endless supply of new words. It's somewhat demotivating to be in the stage where you're just accruing more and more words, and it feels like new words just are showing up at the same rate for a long time. And so this known words metric tells you that actually you are continuing to progress, even if it may not seem like it. Other aspect of the motivation is that they have some nice graphs that show how your progress changes over time, especially with words read. And there's some challenges that they offer, which you just sign up, which is a fun way to interact with the community in a way, or just challenge yourself. So we've seen a lot about what LingQ is, but what is LingQ not? Now, I think a lot of people might come at it that it's a language learning course, but it's really just a tool to help you read and consume the language. So it's not going to really teach you grammar, it's not going to teach you the ins and outs of pronunciation. What makes LingQ good is that it's a very, very good e-reader. In order to succeed with LingQ, it's not a magic bullet either, because reading isn't a magic bullet and it requires consistent exposure over a long period of time. And that exposure doesn't have to be anything crazy. Reading is dense, like I said at the beginning. So, and when I say dense, I mean you're coming into contact with more language, more words and phrases in the same amount of time as you would compared to watching a TV show or going through a textbook. So you don't even need to spend a ton of time reading. I think if you read 30 minutes a day in LingQ every day for a year, that would easily be the most impactful part of your study routine for that year, because reading is so powerful and LingQ improves reading.
Let me walk you through the sign-up process and give you an overview of the website. First, you want to visit the website at LingQ.com. You can change the display language to whichever language you feel most comfortable in, and then you click on Sign Up for free. Next, LingQ will ask you which language you would like to study. But don't worry, you can always change and add more languages later. Then you can choose between beginner, intermediate, and advanced. You can also change the setting right after you're done signing up, so don't worry about it too much. Next, you want to type in your name, an email address, a username, and a password. But before you proceed to create your account, you can click on referral code and enter my username for 100 free links. Make sure to spell it exactly the way that it is spelled on screen right now. Otherwise, the code will not be registered. Then create your account. You're then asked to choose a few more settings. For my daily goal, I like to set it to casual, since everything else can get pretty overwhelming. And it doesn't really matter. You can still change this later on too. Next, LingQ will ask you which topics you're interested in. These are the topics that LingQ will auto-generate reading material for. I wouldn't bother with this too much, since you can import your own stuff into LingQ later on anyways. And that's it, your LingQ account is all set up. Okay, so this is your LingQ homepage. This is where all your content that you imported and also content that is recommended to you will be shown. If we scroll down, we can see different categories: getting started, guided courses, mini stories, trending, newsfeed, and so on and so forth. These will very much depend on the topics that you chose when you signed up. I'm going to show you how to read in LingQ in just a second, but let me give you a quick overview of the website. You can change the level for the recommended courses right here. Right now it's at beginner 1 to beginner 2, but if we move this up, everything between beginner 1 and advanced 2 will be shown to me. Now let's say we're at an intermediate level. We just slide this bar to intermediate 1 to intermediate 2, and LingQ will generate things that fall into these categories. If you're looking for a specific topic, a specific title, or you're looking for one of your books, you can look for that in the search bar right here. On the other side, we get an import button, which we will get to later in this video. Right now, we're in the library panel. But we can also move to playlist, where Link will show all the lessons that you added to this playlist. Personally, this is not a function I use, but feel free to play around with it. Next, we have the vocabulary section. Right now this is empty since we don't have any words in here. But with time, as you link words and save them to your database, this is gonna fill up. Link does have a built-in SRS system, but I do not recommend using it. Generally, I also don't use this page, but feel free to explore as much as you like. So these were all the subcategories for lessons. Let's move on to tutors. Link will recommend tutors depending on the languages that you're learning. I've never used this feature, but I don't think it should be your main focus when using Link. Last, we have the community tab. This is where you find the forum, challenges, writing exchange, your own profile, and contribute to the Link library. It's definitely worth checking out the forum every once in a while, as people recommend either good resources or ask questions that you might also have. The challenges are especially fun if you're looking for a little bit of extra motivation and some competition. Every month there will be a challenge for the language that you're studying. This challenge is great for building a Link reading habit, and it's really fun competing with all the other users. Last, I want to talk about the 3 buttons up here. This one up here shows which language you're currently learning. You can easily switch between languages and add new languages with one click. This is where you get an overview of your stats. It will show you how many words you read, how many links you made, and so on and so forth. It will also show your learning streak. Last, this is where we visit our profile. Here you can get a very detailed overview of your stats. You can filter by language, by stats, and by time period, and get really cool graphs. This is where I get the graph stats from in my other videos, how many words I read each month. Okay, let's finally get started reading then. For anyone that's new to Link and still a beginner in their target language, I suggest you look for the Link mini stories. You can either find them in the guided courses for a beginner 2, Link mini stories, or if you scroll down even further, you will find the mini stories. This is a series of 60 mini stories to get you started reading. If we hover over any of the squares, we can see a kind of pop-up menu. Obviously with open, you open the lesson. The number next to the blue field is the words that you have not seen according to the Link system yet. Since I don't know any French words yet, in this lesson there are 97 new words. Down here you can see a percentage. 100% of the words in this lesson are new. This number will drastically go down the more words you learn. As you progress, looking at the percentage of new words is a good indicator of how difficult a lesson will be for you. Depending on your language and learning style, you want to try to keep it under 20%. Ideally is anything between 5 and 10%, since that is where the most efficient learning takes place. Link makes it possible to read stories with even more unknown words, but it's not a comfortable experience, so I suggest that you look for lessons and try to read books that have a lower percentage. Okay, let's get started then. This is what the screen will look like when you open a lesson. I know you really want to get started reading, but before we do that, it is important that we adjust some settings for the most comfortable reading experience. To do that, follow along and hover over the 3 dots. Then, click on Reader Settings. Now these settings you can use however you like them, but I would suggest that under General, you have the Paging Moves to Known checked and the Auto Link Generation unchecked. This is really important since it makes Link 100% more efficient. Also, I suggest your primary dictionary language is English, since most of the definitions are going to be the best when they're in English. Of course, you can add other dictionary languages too. For the other settings, it doesn't really matter, just play around with it a little bit. Okay, now that that is done, we can finally start reading. As you can see in the screen, all words are marked blue because we don't know any words yet. To look up a word, you just click on it, and on the right side of the screen, you will have a pop-up. As you can see, there are a lot of different definitions, but ideally you want to choose one that has a lot of information in it, different meanings for the word. And for languages that have genders, you want it to include the gender. This one looks great because it shows us that it's a noun, it's female, and it has two meanings, history and story. So let's click this. As you can see, the word turned yellow. This is what you call a link, and you just created your first link. Let's move on to the next word. Again, we look for a definition that has a lot of information in it. one, and it's masculine. Story 1. You created your second link, and as we mentioned earlier in this video, once you link a word, it's gonna be linked for the next time that you see it too. Not just for this text, but even for other texts. So that next time you come across the word, you just click on it and immediately you can see the definition of the word. Okay, let's move on. Okay, as you can see, this is a name and I don't want it to be added to my known words. So what we can do is we click on it and we press either the trash can or we hit the letter X, which will ignore the word and will not add it to our known word database. Things that I like to ignore are names, typos, and other languages in text. Sometimes when importing, let's say, a French article, it might be that there's a paragraph of English where they're quoting, and I don't want that to count towards my words known. So I'll just hit X to ignore all the English words. I also like to ignore weird dialectal or colloquial abbreviations that you wouldn't really see being used in real life or that aren't used anywhere else. Okay, let's go over some of the things that you can see here. To listen to how this word is pronounced, you can just click on the little button up here. If you want to type your own definition, you can do that right here. If you want to look up things in an online dictionary, you can do that right here. As a beginner for most of the very popular languages, I don't think it's necessary to ever use these because the community definitions are just really amazing. But if you're ever unsure and the community definitions don't seem to quite explain the meaning of a word, you can always just look it up in one of these dictionaries. This is where you can choose which language you would like to translate it to. As you can see, there are not too many translations in other languages. Last, I would like to take a moment to talk about the stepping system, marking words as known, and relinking words. Once you've seen a word enough times, I suggest that you move it from one to known. I don't think there's any use in using the stepping system as there's really no point trying to figure out how well you know a word because you either don't know it or you know it. If you don't know a word, you just put it on one. That way it will be really apparent every time you come across it in any text. With these different highlight colors, it's so easy to see which words you don't know yet. Whenever you come across a blue word, you should always look it up, unless you're 100% sure that you know what it is. And if you have the feeling that you know a word, you just click it as known. LingQ is an amazing tool and it's really efficient, so there's really no use to use your mental capacities and concentration on trying to figure out which stage that word is currently in. Also, there's no need to be scared to mark words as known because if you happen to forget a word, you can just relink it and it will come up with the same definition as the one you had before. Okay then, let me finish linking this page. And I actually know some of these words, so I'm just gonna mark them as known. You can do that by either clicking on this check mark or you hit K on your keyboard. Okay, as you can see, I linked all the words that I didn't know. But as you can see, there are still a lot of blue words. Now, I'm not gonna bother because clicking every single one and marking it as known takes quite some time. That's why we have pages moved to known. Once you hit this little button, all these words are gonna be converted into known words. As you can see, my counter just went up. I now know 29 words in French. And if we check the last page, you can see none of the words are blue anymore. These are all known words. And as you can see on the next page, all the words that I looked up, you can actually see I can easily access the definitions with just one click. Now, one last thing that you can also do in LingQ is if you click and drag, you can mark a whole phrase and get translations for different phrases. This is really useful for idioms or common collocations. Okay, I will finish this lesson and very quickly show you what LingQ is now going to look like after you started linking things. Here you get an overview of your stats. We made 22 links and now know 72 words. This is where you can see how many times you read, and currently it's a little bugged, but I'm sure they're going to fix it pretty soon. Let's go back to the home screen. As you can see, we now have a lesson here. We already completed this one, and this will fill up the more lessons you study. Now, if we take a look at this, we can see that we're now at 80% new words. That is because we already know 75 words. And so now it's going to be really easy finding lessons that are easier for us to read. Remember, we want to be between 10 to 20% new words. Ideally, for the most efficient learning, between 5 to 10%. Okay, last, I really quickly want to show you how to import things to LingQ, since that is the most fun part about LingQ. To import things, you click Import, and then Import ebook. Now you need to have a file. Now you want to drag your file in here, and ideally you don't want it to be copyright protected because that might mess up with the LingQ import. You just drag it over, and it automatically opens the first lesson as more and more gets imported to LingQ. To access the whole course, go on the 3 dots and then click View Course. Now this might take a moment depending on the length of the book, but you can just sit back and wait, or you get started reading the first lesson. You'll get a little notification once it's successfully imported, and you're ready to go. As you can see, there are a lot of unknown words, and so this is probably pretty hard for me to read as a French beginner. And that's it for the basic functionality of LingQ. With all this knowledge, you should now be perfectly equipped to get started reading on LingQ and making the most out of it. I'd still suggest you take your time and look around the website for a little bit, play around with the functionality for a bit just to see what kind of learning style suits you best. But building a reading habit is definitely one of the best things you can do for your language learning. I also recommend that you try to use LingQ for a bit longer than just a week, exactly to give yourself time to build that habit, and you will notice that in no time your understanding of the language will have massively increased. Again, check the link down in the description if you want to get started with 100 free links. And if you still have any questions, let me know in the comments and I'll try to answer them as best as I can.